Hey everyone, and welcome to a chilly December edition of the Rumcast podcast. My name is John Gulla, he is Will Hookinga, and we are your co-hosts for the podcast that talks all things rum related with the people who love and shape it. We have a very interesting and, dare I say, unique episode lined up where we interview not one, not two, but three people who are all a big part of the newly released rum from the island of Dominica, Rosalie Bay, and specifically how that rum ties into wildlife conservation efforts there. Will, I know that we have a lot of interest in both the rum and the conservation efforts, so it was nice to get a few people on there, really interesting and different.
Yeah, it was great. We were able to talk with, as you mentioned, three people. We talked to Kernean George, who is the head distiller at Rosalie Bay Distilling. We talked to Marcella Harris, who is a board member of an organization called Dominica Sea Turtle Conservation Organization that's tied in with a lot of the efforts there. And then we talked to Brett Steigerwaldt, he's been a distillery advisor at the Rosalie Bay project. He's also the head distiller for Lyon Rum, which some listeners may be familiar with. That's an American rum distillery in Maryland that's been around for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And I remember, I first heard about this project several years ago and was able to connect with Brett a couple of years back when he was passing through Nashville and kind of, got a first taste then. And so, I've kind of seen this project coming together in the background. And now that it's finally here and people can buy the rum, people even in the United States can buy the rum. It's really exciting because, first of all, you and I kind of talk about this, but when you think about countries in the Caribbean that produce rum, I think once you're to the point of listening to a rum podcast all the time, you kind of have a decent idea of most,
What's
if
out
not
there.
all, the rum producing countries. And one you don't often hear about is Dominica. And we should note this is Dominica, not the Dominican Republic. Dominica is an island. It's really located kind of like right in between Martinique and Guadeloupe, but very different rum making tradition there. However, this is a rum made from fresh sugarcane juice, like you see on those islands, however, made quite differently. And they're doing fascinating work. As you said, the kind of impetus for creating the distillery was to fund a lot of the conservation efforts that an organization called Oceans Forward has been doing there in terms of protecting sea turtles, protecting coral reefs, protecting whales. And they're also able to do a lot of good other things. Like they're working with over 80 local small sugarcane farmers there to source their cane. So it's interesting because of the Dominica does have a rum making tradition, and you can find lots of people making rum throughout the island. Kind of, I think during the interview you compared it to almost like you'll find people making claret around Haiti.
Right.
It's not all necessarily commercially available through traditional channels, but you'll find bush rum and things like that throughout the island. They also had another distillery, Makusheri, that I think some may be familiar with, that made a cane juice rum, and their operations have kind of ceased because of some tropical storm and hurricane effects in recent years. So it's great to see another cane juice rum distillery coming online in a way where people can try it, whether they visit there or live in the United States and want to order a bottle. So we really dove into the whole thing, got lots of details, some fascinating conservation stuff that I really didn't know about. And of course, the main focus is the rum. So we get into all the details of how it was made, how the project came together and everything. And very, very cool stuff. Great personalities on the interview. So I think people will really like it. But before I get over there, John, I want to... I created a little exercise for you.
Exercising me. I don't know if those two words go together, but okay.
I'll think of it as a mental exercise. So a couple episodes back, we did our tasting through the new Flag Series rums from La Maison and Bellier. Yeah. You'll remember that. And as we were going through the exercise, you came up with a little convention inspired by the F, Marry, Kill game, which was a rum that you would like to buy and keep for yourself only to drink, a rum you would buy and give as a gift for somebody, and a rum you would buy and have it at home for other people to taste when they come to your house, but that you might not drink all the time. And we were like, wow, we really need a snappy name for this game because it's a good idea. And we got a couple of really good suggestions, I think. So I wanted to go through these suggestions, and then I've prepared a new edition of this game for you, highlighting some rums that we've tasted throughout the year, okay?
All right.
So one suggestion we got via email, this came from Patrick, who is a listener of the show. He said, "Hey guys, love the show and enjoyed the recent tasting of the Velier release of rums. I had an idea for a name for your last segment, so I thought I'd float it by you. Flush, mingle, or keep." And Patrick says he thinks they're pretty self-explanatory, but mingle in his mind would be for either sharing or for cocktail use. So
got it.
Obviously, that's preserving the FMK initials of the original game. So that's really nice. And then we got another suggestion via the Rumcast Patrons Discord server from Gray Fox. Probably not the natural birth name, but the username in Discord. Gray Fox's suggestion was fiend, friends, or foist, which I really enjoyed that because the word foist it's a fun word to say if you haven't said it. Foist, yeah. So fiend, obviously, that's one you keep for yourself. You know, you're fiending
for it.
Yeah. Friends, that's the one you give to a friend, and foist is the one that maybe you don't necessarily want, so you force it on somebody else. So I think the difference in this game versus yours, your three options were all positive, if you'll remember. Each of these contains a negative one. So the first one being flush and the second one being foist. So that's going to be the one kind of wrinkle here. But that's kind of the challenge of the game sometimes. You know, there has to be one that you feel bad about doing something negative to, but you're forced to choose. So with that in mind, I'm going to use fiend, friends, or foist because I like the alliteration and because I get to say foist. So I kind of reviewed some recent rums we've talked about on the show throughout the year because, you know, my mind's already kind of going towards our year in review episode, John, where we're going to pick some of our favorite rums. So
I've already been spending some time with that.
I'm kind of looking back at the catalog, and I wanted to select some rums for you that we've talked about on the show that I know you liked to varying degrees. Okay. So this is also you trying to get insight into my list already. I see what you're doing here. So all right, okay, that's fine. Maybe I don't think I'm going to reveal too much. It's fine. I'm fishing a little bit. Fiend, friend, foist, and fish is the in parentheses at the end. Okay, are you ready for the three rums I've selected for this?
Okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna take notes just so I can think about this. Go ahead.
All right. First off, we've got the release from the new American independent bottler, Roaming Road, the Belize 17-year release, which we recently discussed. That might have been a bonus episode for patrons, I think. So I know you had strong positive feelings for that rum.
I did. Like it. Yep.
The second rum, Down Island, Ghana 2020. So this is one that I think was around earlier in the year. We talked about it, but one that I know stood out to you. You put that one on me in a semi-blind review challenge. I did not come close, spoiler alert, to identifying it, but we had great fun discussing it. Yeah. And then last but not least, we have the Holmes Key Infinity Cask rum. So these are your three.
Oh man.
Fiend, friend, or foist, John? Which one's going with which one?
I may have to talk this out a little bit here because these are already really tough choices and great rums. And so, yeah, you didn't make it easy on me. You didn't put in one in there that I'm like already like, okay, whatever.
It wouldn't be fun if it were easy.
Oh, man. Okay, so when I think about the Holmes Key Infinity Cask, as we've spoken about, it is a really good rum, but I think it's something that feels like the main benefit of it is really somehow in the sharing of it, in the history of it, and enjoying it with others. So that one's starting to kind of coalesce into the friend option, I think.
That would be to clarify, is this a rum that you are giving as a gift to a friend or one that you will be sharing with friends?
Well, so we talked about I don't remember the other option with the names, but it sounded like that one feels like you're sharing with friends. Mingle, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at friend as this option. So I guess you have to tell me, am I just straight up giving this to a friend?
Or do I get to share it with them? It's more interesting if you're giving it away because then you don't get to experience it yourself. They'll probably share a little.
Foisting is similar.
But Okay, but foisting, that maybe that's a friend you don't think as highly of, the friend option is the one you really want to impress.
I mean, I'm not foisting any of these. That's garbage. I see what you're doing here. I get it. I get the whole, thing here, but well,
it wouldn't be interesting if it were easy, John.
No, friend still feels like, so if you're going to give it away and you're happy to give it away versus foist is you're giving it away and you're not happy to give it away. Now that's putting it wrong also. Foist is more like you don't like it as much, so you're trying to give it to someone else.
Exactly. And obviously you like all of these, so it's not entirely accurate to say foist, but, just roll with it.
Super not cool. Okay. Fiending is also really hard for these, but I think I'm gonna fiend the Roaming Road 17-year Belize.
Okay,
barely over the Down Island Ghana, and I may regret that.
I thought those were gonna be your two fiend candidates, personally.
Yeah. So then, foisting. It's just wrong to foist a Ghana on somebody, but I'm gonna foist the Ghana onto someone with the intent that when I foist it onto someone, they're going to be happy about it. Because you're getting
the rare happy foisting. Okay. All right. I'll allow it.
I would never foist any of these, just to be clear. But I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to give to a friend a Holmes Key Infinity Cask, because just doing that is you're going to have a friend for years to come, because that's a kingly gift.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where I'm going with it. I do not like that you did this one bit whatsoever, and I'm gonna have to come up with one that is just as difficult for you next time.
Okay, or maybe, if you don't like the game, maybe we need to keep workshopping names to something that's a little less negative for one of the options.
I like the alliteration also, but I do like the idea of the mingle, like the mingle of like, I'm gonna share it with you, as opposed to just giving it away and never seeing it again feels better to me.
Okay.
So giving it away, never seeing it again, sharing it with someone, and then something you're just kind of keeping for yourself for a special occasion feels like the right F, marry, kill analog to me.
Okay. Well, maybe we could reserve the foist option for when there's an option among the three that we know you don't like.
Agreed. Okay.
Okay. With all that said, thank you everyone for the suggestions for that. But we have an interview to get to. John, before we cut over there, I'm curious if there's just any takeaways you had, anything you want to spotlight for people to watch out for or anything like that.
Well, there's a couple of things. One is that it was amazing to hear the relationship with Kernean, and Brett, and how that came along. And I won't spoil any of it here, but it was really cool to hear the interplay of how that came together. Her road from not drinking rum and not being involved in making rum into making this product over a few short years is really interesting. And then, Brett's involvement in all of that, and how him and I believe it was Jake, that they came together to help and make this happen with the conservation efforts in mind. Brett kind of reminds me of Oppenheimer in a way.
So not responsible for, possibly, questionable ethical things that impacted,
let me qualify that.
Millions of people.
What I mean to say is, yes, that was fair. There's a part in the Oppenheimer movie where they say that Oppenheimer was always searching for a way to bring his love of physics and New Mexico together.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like somehow Brett and, to an extent, Jake, they somehow brought their love of rum and wildlife conservation efforts together to make this happen.
Yeah,
and that's what I mean by that.
Okay.
So not the whole, nuclear bomb thing.
Right. the other side of Oppenheimer. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, fair.
The friendlier side.
Fair.
The New Mexico side.
Yeah, and also getting to hear Marcella's perspective. She's worked for decades in conservation and is originally from Trinidad as well. So we had some fun talking about some Trinidad rums and things throughout. It was really good fun. So really looking forward to everyone hearing this and getting their takes, what they're excited about, and their reactions as they try the rum. So with all that said, let's take a quick break and cut over to the interview. All right, we are here with 3 members of the team from Rosalie Bay Distillery, very exciting new distillery in Dominica. And I'll introduce them all momentarily, but one of the members of the team we have here is actually who I came to first hear about this project from in the first place, which is Brett Steigerwaldt, who, Brett, you're kind of a distillery advisor, I would say. Listeners may also be familiar with your work. You're also the head distiller at Lyon Rum in Maryland. And that's actually the first way that I heard about Rosalie Bay was, this must have been 4 or 5 years ago. I was talking with your boss, Jamie, of Lyon Rum, and she was kind of mentioning some stuff she was doing with someone who was doing sea turtle conservation in Dominica, and I was like, how in the world did this happen? This rum distillery, this tiny rum distillery in Maryland. How did they end up working on a project in the Caribbean and Dominica, and sea turtles are involved somehow? And I didn't hear that much more about it for a couple of years. And then, Brett, you were passing through Nashville, where I live, and we met up, and you pulled out a sample, and it was like Rosalie Bay rum, and I was like, oh my God, this is the sea turtle thing in Dominica, right? I couldn't believe that all the while in the background, all this work had been getting done. And I think that was maybe a year or two ago. And so now we're here, where we also have Kernean George, who is the official head distiller at Rosalie Bay Distillery from Dominica, who joined the team that I know you've been working with closely. And we have Marcella Harris, who is, Marcella, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you're a board member of the Dominica Sea Turtle Conservation Organization. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So you have this whole team here, and we're going to learn all about the distillery, the connection to conservation, and in just John and I kind of doing our research before the interview, I think both of us were kind of coming to realize just how unique this project actually is. And I think unique gets overused a lot of times. It's something that it's just uncommon, but I truly haven't heard of another distillery that is kind of set up the way this one is. So we're really excited to, learn a bit more about each of you and the distillery as a whole. But thank you both not both. Sorry, I'm getting used to 3 guests at once. I think this is maybe the second time we've had 3 guests, but I'm really psyched to do it because each of you have such distinct perspectives. So welcome to all 3 of you. Thanks for joining us on the show tonight.
Excited to be here.
Thank you.
So I think the place to start is distillery origin stories are always really interesting because I think it takes someone who's crazy is too harsh of a word, but someone who kind of has a vision and is willing to do something, go out on a limb to open a rum distillery. And I think when you also add in the conservation element and giving 100% of profits to, help sea turtles and coral reef and whales and things like that, it just seems like twice as hard as an actual distillery and twice as interesting probably. So how did this come together? And I'd love to also hear how each of you came to be involved with the distillery.
I guess I can start. Well, a lot of this, almost all of this comes down to very fortuitous meeting Jake Levinson. So he runs Ocean Ford, and his NGO has been playing a very large role in getting the distillery off the ground. So let's just flash back to 2017, post Hurricane Maria, devastated Dominica, and where it made landfall is about a quarter mile just north of the distillery.
Oh wow!
So so when he was down there bringing 200,000 pounds of tarps, food, and other supplies, the whole island was if you ever go, it's a beautiful lush jungle, just paradise, and most of the canopy and the trees were destroyed. There was tons of driftwood on the beach. So his initial idea was, well, what if we just do driftwood? And then everyone's like, that's never going to be able to support conservation. And then just looking at what was on the island, because it's a lush, verdant jungle paradise, everything grows, incredible soil. They have a history of sugarcane, and after Erica and with Maria, there was no one producing cane juice rum on Dominica from 100%, 100% Dominica sugarcane, which is all hand cut, by the way. Very difficult. And that kind of lit the spark. And then when he came back to New England, he was going around to the distilleries asking if this is a possible idea. And a lot of them said it was no, or it was crazy or too hard. And then he just happened to visit his friend in St. Michael's, Maryland, where Lyon Rum is located. And in February 19 came in and was just another tasting room guest, talked to Jamie. Jamie called me, said, I need you to come in. It was a Sunday. come in, we get to talking. It's like, yeah, it's a little crazy, but we know how to bootstrap. So, and there we are. 2019, flew down in June. Never been to Dominica before, and that's where we started doing the proof of concept. We hand crushed 25 gallons worth of cane, so it's a rotary cane, like a cane crusher. And we did a proof of concept. I was distilling in a hotel bathroom, so the fermentation buckets were in the shower. So every time I had to shower, I had to move them. I used the tub as a reservoir for cooling water, and I spent 16 hours a day in that bathroom doing stripping and spirit runs.
Did you check with the front desk like before you started doing that at the hotel?
By the way, if you walk in, this is what you're gonna see.
We were on very good relations with that. We were on very good relations with that hotel, and they were not yet open because again, that hotel is where Maria made landfall.
Okay.
And that's where we started, literally in the bathroom. So the joke, we started in the bathroom, now we're here, is 100% true. And I can give you all the pictures if you need to see it. And that's kind of how I got involved. And then over the years, we got the building built, and here we are now.
Well, I was going to ask Kernean, when you showed up to hear about this idea for the first time, was Brett showing you into a bathroom to show you the setup, or was this after? Was this post bathroom?
Actually, I was living at the hotel because my house got damaged from the hurricane. And that's where I found out. I laughed at first because I was like, what? But then, sorry, Brett. But then I don't know, I just like, yeah, I want to be part of that. And then, yeah, I knew nothing about rum coming into this, nothing. I'm actually not even a rum drinker.
Oh wow.
Whoa.
Are you becoming one, or is that something that you plan to just keep, part of work but not, indulge in?
Part of work. I mean, I do sample other people's products, but I just wanted to be part of it.
What was it about the project that really made you want to be a part of it?
The conservation, the city to conservation, because my sister was one of the beach cleaners, and I was like, okay. And then when I saw one for the first time, I was like, what? I didn't know a turtle was that big. I honestly never knew that something would be that big.
Yeah.
So when I saw it for the first time, and then I heard it breathing on the shore, like I was like, oh, and I just fell in love with turtle, and then I just wanted to be part of this.
So how long ago then was it that you first started saying, okay, I'm going to be a rum distiller, I'm going to learn how to do this? How much time has passed since then?
2022, I believe. I actually was working at the hotel as a security officer. And then I told Jake was passing, I was like, I want to work for you. And then he was like, yeah, sure. And then he was like, if you had to give me one animal that describes you, what would it be? And I was like, a goat.
Then
he was like, a goat? Why a goat? And then I was like, because goats like to be high, and I just destined to be high. I just like to climb. I want to be high. And he was like, okay. And that was it.
You have to be careful with that in the States here.
I thought it was going to be, I thought it was going to be a greatest of all time reference. But no, the climbing, that makes sense too. So now that you're kind of in it and distilling every day, what is that process been like? I'm not even sure kind of what steps you go through on the learning to be a rum distiller journey. Like, does Brett show up with a syllabus or something on day one, or like what does that process of learning look like?
Harry Potter in the dark arts class. Brett's coming in, page 394. Kernean.
Actually, Brett is one of the best teachers I could ever ask for. Very, very, very patient. Sometimes I would ask a question maybe 3-4 times, and Brett would answer me 3-4 times in the most soothing way possible. I could not have asked for a better teacher. It wasn't anything like the board and smacking the board. It wasn't anything like that. It was like,
that's good to hear. Yeah.
we're gonna do this step first, this step, what do you think? How does it feel? And it was like that. So I kind of like grew into it. He made it seem like everything for Brett is fun. Like his learning is fun. Brett's classroom is fun. So everything just came easy.
That's the I feel like the best review possible, Brett, for your
Mhm.
for your teaching skills. In case you were wondering, you make learning fun, so
Of
You
good
know,
for
course.
you.
it's I'm very touched right now by that. But when it like comes to training, the easiest way to do it is tie it to data. Like for example, if you have a distillation run, we track like Kernean and the team track the run every 15 minutes once it starts coming off the parrot, and we're checking ABV, we're checking temperature, we're checking flow rate because that's how we dial in the boiler to maintain quality throughout the run. And over time, as you build those distillation curves and with more experience in sensory, because the other assistant, Jovan, he doesn't really drink at all. So
Mm.
how do you train someone to do that? Well, you have to work in those within those limitations. So by tying it to those visual curves and then showing where the cut points are, and then being able to take random samples, set them aside, have the team smell, taste, if necessary, do sensory, and then if they don't know where it is in the run, you just simply check the ABV, and then based on the ABV, you know where it's going to be. And then over time, you can tie those sensories to key points on the distillation run, and that will allow you to make educated predictions based on where you are on the run, when you think it'll complete, and so forth. So in that way, you can tie all those things to quality, and then the team, like Kernean has demonstrated, becomes very confident in their abilities to do it. And once you give them space to be on their own, just standing back, watching, and available for questions, they knock it out of the park and they're running with it. I mean, Kernian hasn't asked me a question. I don't know, the last time you asked me a distilling question, and you're a pro at this now. It's awesome.
I was going to ask that question, how often do you all talk now, but I think you just answered that. So it's interesting to see the curve of that, and just it's only a couple short years, right? I mean, it's not been that long.
Yeah, I mean, I think in total of contact time, it's like I'd say maybe a month and a half of like contact time with me being able to get down there. And for us, because in 2022, we were still fighting with not fighting, but we were still learning how to operate the boiler. Because like at Lyon Rum, everything we do is electric element where it's very precise. But with steam, once you make an adjustment, you've got to wait 15, 30 plus minutes to see how it
Mm.
kicks over.
Mm.
So you can't panic. You've got to just let it do its thing. And the problem is with the boiler in Dominica at the time, there was a lot of play in the handle, so we never knew where zero was. So we would
Mm.
adjust it, and we didn't know. So in 2022, that was a lot of a learning curve. And then once we realized where we thought it was and we nailed it, then we just printed out a 360-degree circle, laminate it, just put it over the thing. So then we would just turn it to whatever set angle you need. So that way you could say heads, we run here,
Yeah.
hearts,
Yeah.
we run here. And it just
Low
took time.
tech.
Yeah, and again,
Yeah.
the best part is the whole team had to figure it out. So I was learning, Kernian was learning, Jovan was learning, and then everyone realized how everything ties into each other. And it's really good to be able to troubleshoot with the team because everyone figures it out together, and then you have the confidence to go forward and know that I know how to do this.
Yeah.
So between, that month and a half contact time over, 2 years, I think maybe 2 months now, has been amazing. So every time I would go down, I would have to relearn how to run it, and I would look to Kernian for advice. I'm like, I don't remember how to run this, so please teach me.
Yeah.
And she's a very patient teacher as well.
Before we get too far into the rum, Marcella, I wanted to bring you into the conversation. And how did you come to be involved in all of this? And what is kind of your role in this whole project?
I started, I was involved for over 20 years now. I've
Oh,
been
wow.
protecting turtles on Dominica. My husband was the coordinator of the Dominica Sea Turtle Conservation Organization, and I volunteered with the organization. Um, it's a kind of a roundabout way. I was born in Trinidad, but I went to Dominica in 1990 to train persons for their national census. And that's where I met my husband. We got married, and he was working on a project around the World Heritage Site, Montuapito National Park.
Oh,
And he
okay.
said to me one day, would you like to get involved in protecting turtles? And I said, yes. He said, you know anything about it? I said, yes. When I was in high school, we didn't have organized turtle groups in Trinidad as yet. And they would, the Field Naturalist Club would put an ad in the newspaper and say if people wanted to come and help to protect the turtles by going to the beaches and having a presence on the beach so the poachers wouldn't come to kill the turtles. So I used to do that when I was in high school. And when we started protecting the turtles on Dominica, we met Jake. And he said he wanted to get involved in turtle protection. And we would spend long hours trying to figure out how we're going to get money to carry out this work
Sure.
and what innovative things we should do. And over the years, we've done a few things, but I think this is by far the most innovative of all. And unfortunately, my husband got ill and he passed.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
So he didn't actually see this. So
Oh, no.
I didn't leave Dominica after he died because I figured I needed to stay and continue some of his work and to make sure that we have continuity and we have people like Kernean coming up to continue the work. One day Jake came to me and he said, what do you think about if we make rum? You think anybody will drink it? I said, yes. Everybody you've ever brought to Dominica as a volunteer from the States, the first thing they always ask me is, where can I get Dominican rum? I want to take back Dominican rum. So I said, I know it will sell in the States. That's seriously. They would all want to know where they could get Dominican rum. And I suppose nothing is better than a drink of rum on a cold winter's night, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, we were lucky enough to get a few samples of the rum that y'all have been making. So, see, I just have a tiny little bit left because I was trying it about an hour before the call and really enjoying it. And it's freezing cold here in Nashville right now. So, I mean, John's in Miami. He's got it a little bit nicer than me, but there's
Not too
nothing
bad
more
here.
comforting.
It's jacket weather for sure here.
Yeah.
So, Marcella, you hit on this a little bit, but our listeners pretty much are familiar with all of the nations in the Caribbean that make rum, and they've tried a lot of rum. But there's some gaps there, and one of them is Dominica. And I'm guessing that a lot of them that are listening to this are going, I haven't seen any rum from Dominica or even tried it before Rosalie Bay. Can you maybe, Marcella and Brett and Kernean, feel free to jump in. Can you give us a little bit of the landscape and the background for rum there on the island of Dominica and like how you first encountered it, how it weaves itself into the culture there?
I think I can start. I think in the old days, Dominica was probably not one of the first countries in the Caribbean to plant sugarcane for sugar and rum. They started a little bit later. And it was mainly led by the French that came across from Guadeloupe. And when the British, remember we were colonies, and we were being conquered by one country and then another. And when the British came, I think they really established setting up a system to produce sugarcane. The thing is, Dominica is a very mountainous country.
Mm-hmm.
And there are few areas that have flatlands because you perceive where sugarcane is grown in the Caribbean that you have very flat lands like Guyana or Antigua or Barbados for that matter, you know. But Dominica is our highest mountain here is 4,747 feet.
Oh, wow.
And it's the areas where sugarcane could grow easily. Some of them were estates on the northeast and in the south. And just by chance, you know, I was reading some of the areas where sugarcane was being planted in Dominica are areas where turtles come up on those beaches nearby. So I keep saying, oh, these linkages, like, these things keep coming up, you know. And Rosalie
too
was
many
one
connections.
of the areas that they did have sugarcane at Rosalie, and Rosalie had a water wheel because they were near to a river. So, and you can still see the ruins of the water wheel. I think there were three ways that they were producing it. They were grinding the sugar with the water wheel, or by wind, or by animals. And so the sugar industry did not last very long in Dominica, because later on it was taken over by bananas, because the motherland, Britain, would want want us to produce a lot of whatever they needed. And so we did a lot of monocropping, although governments in these islands have always tried to encourage diversification. But once you have a market for something and you have to produce the amount, that is what dictates what you grow. So sugar got sidelined a little, but there were two particular distilleries. Brett can tell you a little bit about that. Mercury, that are still around now, and they were there many years, eh, Brett?
Yeah.
You were telling me about it.
Yeah, so when I arrived here, I remember reading Ed Hamilton's book, Rums of the Eastern Caribbean. It's a great book, talking about his time when he sailed here. And at the time, and still to this day, there are two main facilities. One was Mercury. That was the one that produced 100% Dominican hand cut, cane juice rum. And
Yes.
they had a column still. Unfortunately, they were devastated by Tropical Storm Erica, given the mountainous conditions. And like, some people don't think tropical storms are that dangerous. They are, just because here with all the, in Dominica with all the mountains, all that water is coming down,
Right.
and that it damaged their still house and a lot of other of their equipment. And then 2 years later, Maria came, and I've talked to people who've tried it, and they say our rum is very reminiscent to what Dominica cane juice rum tastes like. But I've yet to been able to find any bottles of Mercury. And as far as we're aware, I don't know if they are planning to reopen. I hope so, because they have a storied history of over 200 years of production, and that would be a wonderful day to see more cane juice produced on this island. And then there's another distillery called Belfast Estate.
Right.
I don't know if they are distilling their own rums, but I know that they do produce wonderful blended rum products that are for local consumption on the island. And they're very popular. You'll see a lot of their products in most bars and restaurants. And they make a particular one called Bois Bondé, which is they infuse the bark of the Bondé tree into it. And it's a very popular on island at any of the little rum shops. So those are the two. And I did not realize this until I went to the distilling conference in St. Lucia, but the head of their whole program is a female. So it's awesome. Kernean is joining a tradition of female distillers or female distillery managers on island. So it's pretty wonderful to see.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And Kernean, also, I was going to say, I know you didn't drink rum till recently, but in terms of what I've read, that there's a lot of small kind of distilleries on different areas that the locals will get just unaged rum. Is that something you've seen at all? Kind of like what I would say close to like I would imagine in Haiti for Clarin.
I know that some of the villagers would have little businesses doing their own rum, but as to the age one, I've never heard of that one.
Gotcha. But there is like small distillers that are kind of weaved into some of the local villages and
Just
things like that.
just small villagers making bush rum, flavored rum, and that's it.
Ah.
I think the flavored rum is a big thing in Dominica, where you'd go into a bar and they would have all the bottles lined up, and each one would have a different one would have cinnamon, one would have anise, different things, and you decide which one you want, because
Ginger.
it gives the rum a different flavor. So although they're buying probably well, in the old days it would be Makushri, but they're buying the
Castrum.
Babande or the castrum that they get now, and they would just make a put stuff to flavor it, and get their own distinctive blend, So that's very popular in the rum shops, yeah, and in the bars. I was a rum drinker. Yeah, I was a rum
You said
drinker.
was. What?
Yes, I drank. That's the first drink I ever had. You know, the first time I ever drank alcohol was rum. And I remember when I was younger, my mother and father didn't drink, and they used to say, you must not drink. And I remember telling my mother, well, I will drink rum and Coke because you'll never know if I'm drinking Coke alone. So I really did start when I got older, I drank rum. But within recent years, I don't drink as much. But I know about rums and all the different ones. And I tasted this one and it's good.
I'm sure you'll make an exception for this
I'm
one.
not, but I'm not a connoisseur. I'm just a simple person who likes to drink rum. Right?
That's okay. I think one of the great things about rum is whether you're a connoisseur or whether you just want something simple and great and easy to drink, there's an option for everyone. And I do think, the rum that you're making right now at Rosalie Bay, it strikes me as a very approachable cane juice rum, which, we talk on the show all the time. The learning curve for people who are newer to rum, cane juice rums, I think, are always a much different thing for people to get into because the flavor profile is so different from molasses rum, which people more associate with. But I think what you've made here is a really approachable, straightforward cane juice rum that can work in a lot of different contexts and things like that, and also does still have some of that complex cane character to it. So it's really cool to see. Marcel, I wanted to ask you, since you mentioned you were from Trinidad, do you remember what the first rum you ever drank was? Maybe was it Fernandez or something from Angostura? Do you remember?
Fernandez.
Fernandez. All right,
It
I
was
got it.
Fernandez. The first one I drank.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
was.
Yeah.
But Angostura, I stopped drinking Fernandez after a while and I started drinking the Angostura rums
Okay.
later
Yeah,
on in life. But my first rum was Fernandez, yes, that I drank. But you're good. What made you think of that?
Oh, what made me think of Fernandez?
Yeah.
Just we've interviewed multiple people from Trinidad now. We've spoken to Angostura's former head distiller, and just learning a little bit about the history of Trinidad rum from Angostura to Fernandez to Caroni and everything. So I was aware that Fernandez was a fairly common rum in
Fernandez
Trinidad.
Black Label. That's the one I drank.
Yeah, that's great. Well, shifting things back to Dominica, I know we want to get into kind of the making of the distillery because the making of a distillery is always interesting when you're starting from scratch, but also especially when you have this primary purpose of the distillery is not only to make great rum, but to create funds to fund conservation efforts. So I wanted to ask, just Brett, you've kind of seen this from two angles now, and everyone feel free to speak up, but what kind of, when you are being a nonprofit that contributes 100% of its profits to conservation efforts, how does that impact or change the decisions that you make as a rum producer as you kind of start building out the distillery and the whole operation and everything?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's much different than operating in a municipality because where the distillery is located is on the southeast corner of Dominica in Rosalie. And, there's, if for tourists visiting the island, it's not really you occasionally see tourists coming through, but for the most part, it's a very quiet section of the island that does not necessarily have, I'd say, as many resources as Roseau or Portsmouth in the north, on the northwest part of the island. So because we are on Nature Island, we have to think through the entire life cycle of our process so that it doesn't cause environmental harm. And, that's a challenge. So because we don't want to do anything that degrades, the environment that we're in or causes collateral problems down the way.
Sure.
So what does that mean? That means carbon neutrality, that's something that we're striving for. We have a comprehensive 3-tier wastewater system, wastewater treatment system that I can talk more when we get to the production part. And we try to, we ethically source as much of our supplies as possible. So literally from the field all the way to wastewater, in the field, it's no chemical, no inorganic. So it's just only organic fertilizing at all. So no spraying of any pesticides or anything like that. And then to the wastewater treatment, we had to build that whole separate facility So once it leaves, it's going through a staggered treatment process so that it ends up just producing, not producing, damaging waste. We end up getting organic fertilizer and some water that we could actually grow, do like raise fish in for hatchery stuff. And I can talk more about that later, but that's what it means. Like you have to think through the entire life cycle, and then you also have to think of how it impacts all the communities with which you work. And Kernean can speak much more about that in terms of the farmers and the communities that we work with to be able to get this cane. And Marcella can also talk about that as well, because there's a very diverse planting of things. So some of the fields that we work may only be a quarter acre, and some might be 2 acres. So, and that might be part of a diversified crop rotation at that location that works for that location. So if sugarcane sells, they're going to sell that, but they might have banana, they might have, pumpkin, they might have other things. And, Marcella and Kernean can speak much more about, the communities that we interact with.
Most of Dominica was large estates in the old days. And with time, the governments subdivided some of the estates so that farmers would be able to get a plot to provide food for their families, or to plant even bananas or sugarcane, anything. And some of the lots were very small. You would have we had fair trade banana farmers on 2 acres of land.
Wow.
And they could still produce a viable crop, So you find that now you may have, now that we don't have the banana preferential treatment and bananas aren't grown as widely as before, that people look for other crops to put on these small plots. So you may find Kernean will tell you how many farmers she has with 2 acres or 1 acre. And it is all part of the government's trying to be more, in the old days, a large estate, if a Ministry of Agriculture went to speak to the owner, they would speak to one man and get them to change their policies or plant something in a certain way. But then what happens to the rest of the persons on the islands who are dependent on agriculture? Some of them were agricultural workers. And so the government did the correct thing in subdividing the land and selling to farmers. So we have a lot of small farmers, but it made it more difficult for the Ministry of Agriculture, because you now have to talk to 100 farmers from one estate, but it was a correct thing to do, the right thing to do, so that people would have a piece of land. And that's why we're able now to deal with all these, and we have to deal, that's the history of the agricultural sector. So now Kernean has to deal with many farmers, some on small plots and some on bigger plots. Tell them about how many farmers we have, Kernean.
We have over 80 farmers and over 32 acres of cane planted all across Dominica. Each farmer plot is maybe about an hour to get to the distillery.
So what does the process look like for you for managing the sourcing of all of that? Because I was mostly, picturing you in the distillery focusing on making the rum, but it sounds like you're doing that involves a whole lot of going out and talking to different farmers. Yeah. So what does the sourcing look like for you?
Before we started, we had to get farmers all across Dominica. So it was just me traveling around, talking to the people, talking to villagers, to friends. Then sometimes on your drive, you see like a little plot of cane and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that person has cane. So you just immediately stop the vehicle.
Pull off on the side of the road.
Yeah. So then people started calling me cane lady.
Cane lady.
So mostly everybody, that's how they call me now. Like people don't even know my name. They'll be like, oh, the cane lady passed. Oh, she passed. Oh, she said she's coming in this area today. So that's how I get, some people literally call my phone like, am I speaking to the cane lady? I'm like, yeah, you're speaking to the cane lady.
You're in their phones as first name Cane, last name Lady. Yeah.
Cane lady, just cane lady. So then in talking to the different farmers, they would tell me different varieties of cane. Because coming into Rosalie Conservation Center, I knew nothing about different types of cane. I just know all cane was cane.
Yeah.
So in speaking to the farmers, I started getting educated at the different varieties of cane. So I know that there is Malivoire, there is bamboo, there is Sayaya, there is Black Sam. So I start getting myself familiarized with these names.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say my relationship with the farmers, they're like friends, they're like families, they're like grandfathers. They're just my whole heart because without them, it will just not be possible.
So
Yeah.
I have a like maybe a stupid question here, which is like, how does all of this come together logistically? You have 80 farmers plus, right? Are you like saying, okay, you cut your cane on Tuesday, and then you over here cut your cane on Wednesday? Like, how does this work out?
We check the plots 2 times per month before we do that. Once your cane is ripe, we will call and we'll give you some weeks advance and let you know, okay, your cane is ready. We're going to make a harvest on the 16th of December, so you can start cutting your cane on the 14th of December to get it to the distillery on the 16th of December. So that's how we do it. So once we cut your land, we let your land ripe up again. We move on to another person. That's how we do it.
Do you have like a printed schedule up somewhere, or like do
Big
you send out an
spreadsheet.
Excel spreadsheet? Yeah.
And no, we just go from farm to farm, check the cane, and then we'll let the farmers know every time what happens. So if your cane is ready, we'll let you know, but we guide you along as to when everything is ready.
I see.
So
It's all done through the cane
nothing
lady.
is just yeah. So nothing is just rushed on you.
So
Gotcha.
you mentioned, I think it sounded like 4 different varieties of sugarcane. Have you found a preferable one that you like to work with, or do you use all varieties that you can get your hands on and kind of, blend them together? What does that look like?
We work with all varieties. There are some harvests that we will only have black sam, which is the red one. There are
Mm,
other harvests when we would have them mixed up. So we work with all varieties.
okay. And before the farmers were selling their cane to the cane lady for rum, were they what kind of were the different uses for the sugar cane? I mean, who else was buying it? What does that kind of look like outside of rum making?
We have juice. We have people buying the cane and using it as juice,
Okay.
or you just use it as little pieces. We would cut them and put them in like little
Mm-hmm.
baggies,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll sell them at the grocery store, or we just use them for our own consumption.
Okay.
There are street vendors who sell cane juice. You
Yeah.
know, the street vendors, they would grind it right there in front of you and sell cane juice. And I think too, some of the traffickers, the people who sell produce to the other islands would buy cane and go to Antigua with it and sell it across there,
Oh
or
wow.
St. Martin also. And even the supermarkets, I've noticed they're putting the cane in little bags and selling it as,
Mm-hmm.
already cut and ready to eat. So some supermarkets have been doing that too.
Yeah.
Oh, Marcella, you're reminding me. So in 2020, when I was there for the second proof of concept, we had an electric cane mill, and we were still doing it at the hotel. And I had moved out to the front porch, and I had like a big plastic thing that I was using as my reservoir. So I got out the bathroom. It was awesome. But the cane couldn't get through the cane mill, so it caused the rotor to lock, which caused full amperage on the cable, which caused the cable to catch fire, caused the machine to catch fire.
Oh my
we had to
God.
get the machine out of the building. It was a whole thing. But because of that, we couldn't, I had 25 plus gallons of things that we had to, fill, and I wasn't going to do that by hand. So we called the juice man at the bus
Right.
station in Roseau, right across from the river, and we contracted with him to bring a truckload of cane, and I helped him prep the cane. So here I am right behind the juice man's counter with a cutlass, just prepping all the cane, literally, and like people are gathered around because like, what is he doing? Why? And they asked me, "Are you learning to be a juice man?" I said, "No, I'm trying to make rum." So we're literally like pressing the cane, and then I was using the water off of their tap, which is this beautiful Dominica water, to hydrate the yeast, and I was pitching the yeast literally into the buckets. And then once we got all the fermentation started, we drove all the way across back to Rosalie to get it back. But it was very comical. Like it's hard to believe that we did that, but it's awesome. Anywhere you go on island, if you see little plastic bottles with like a greenish liquid. It's cane juice, and
Cane
it's full of
juice.
vitamins and minerals, and it's an amazing thirst quencher.
Well, you say comical, I say resourceful is the way to describe that.
Well, I mean, it definitely, you have to, you learn to make do, and honestly, it's very similar to what we've done at Lyon. So that was a perfect fit. It's like you have to figure it out, and we have. I mean, there's, Kernean will contact me, and I'll try to help her from a distance. But oftentimes, if there's issues with the boiler or the cane mill, Kernean and the team are figuring it out on the fly. And literally, like the first cane mill that we had, we got through Alibaba, which I'd never worked with before. Just to be very brief, it had lots of problems. So we'd have to tear down the cane mill 4 or 5 times during the initial pressing, just because it would have issues until Richard Seals gave us great advice to get a cane mill from Brazil, and that's what we have today. And it's Kernean can tell you it's much easier to crush with that machine than the old one.
So you've got now this end goal of conservation, right? You've got the approach you want, sustainability from end to end, but you also have to make good rum, right? So you've got all of these things that have to align. Can you tell us a little bit about how you approach developing the style and the flavor profile? How much of that was intentionally driven, or was it simply committing to a quality process from cane to rum and just letting the terroir dictate what the final product was?
I would say this was definitely a little bit of both. So, like when I went down in 2019 and 2020, I used a very common yeast that you see in the rum world just to test out an idea. It's EC1118. It's a champagne style yeast. Usually it doesn't have any fermentation problems. But the problem is with cane juice, in 24 hours, your pH will drop to a low level where that just doesn't work. So I was really struggling to get successful fermentation. And I mean, and Kernean, please correct me if I'm wrong, but our average fermentation strength is about 5, maybe 6% if we're really lucky. So somewhere in that range. And what I ended up doing was I ended up contacting Lallemand about this because, I scoured the internet for different yeasts. And because of that pH drop, it gets really challenging. So you have to use very specific yeast for that, or you have to buffer, which can cause its own problems. So we ended up trialing a bunch of different Distillamak products, and we ended up selecting Distillamak CN for several reasons. One, it is sourced from Brazil, so it's perfect for working with cane or molasses. So it's very versatile. It has a really lovely profile, and it tends to add almost like a sweet almond, floral, like marzipan note on top of what you get. And we found that it worked really well with the profile when we were doing small scale trials. And because what we were hoping to do was to produce a rum that was very approachable, but didn't have the herbaceous, grassy complexities of some of the neighboring islands, like in Guadeloupe or Marie-Galante or Martinique. And I think we achieved it. So the profile that we were looking for was something that was like gently grassy, slightly herbaceous, light florals with some like almond, maybe marzipan notes. And that would have some kind of finish to where you get like a floral marzipan, like gently herbaceousness with light phenols. And I think we did that pretty well because we wanted just to have something that would be good on its own, would be good to stand up to aging, and that was as approachable as possible because we needed something that would kind of bridge the gap that, again, like, how it is in the rum world.
Yeah.
Cane juice rum can be very polarizing. If you haven't had it, you're not ready for it.
Absolutely.
So you just have to accept that, hey, this is what cane juice tastes like. Okay, cool. Then analyze it and see if you like it. Then you might find the right one for you, or you might prefer it in a cocktail. And I think we were able to like kind of find that middle path that allowed us to achieve approachability with I would say like a medium complexity, but that would also take to aging in different ways. So I think we were able to achieve it. And I have to give a shout out to Chernelle Lane from Lallemand, because her patience and understanding and follow through to help us achieve our success is in large part why we're here today. So you definitely need to shout out.
I think the way you described that just then was really helpful for me because I was trying to think of a way to describe the rum's sweetness on the entry of the palate, because it does have a natural tasting sweetness, not like they made this sweeter unnaturally, but that sweetness that any spirit can possess. And I think that way you described it is really accurate, that kind of marzipan note. And you do get some of the herbaceousness as it goes on, but it's light, straightforward, and as you said, like a good bridge, I think, for people who are newer to the style, for sure.
I hate to use the term gateway cane juice rum, but it kind of is. I mean, this will kind of get you in there, and then you'll kind of have a general idea of what you can expect, and then, depending on where you go on the journey, you might find things. And it's double pot distilled, so we purchased a 200-gallon. Technically, it's 3, but we don't really run more than when we're doing our spirit runs 225, just for many logistical reasons, mainly to do with heat up and distillation time and length, because it's usually, and Kernean can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's usually at most 2 people, and it takes 12 hours. So it's a whole thing. We can't really go longer than that period. So we had to find that balance point between still, like, charging the still and quality, and that's where we were able to achieve. But we have a pot still with 4 plates that we don't use, but we can't open them, so it does go through that. So we don't run with the deflameter and anything active. We have it for initial heat up just to kind of slow things down, but then once it fully heats up to about 80 Celsius in the pot, then we turn off the cooling water and let it gently go. So that helps slow the flow over for the 4 shots and head cuts. And because of that, when we're doing stripping runs and spirit runs, it still has to go through that. And I think that's helping us achieve some of that lightness. Just even though you're not getting any buildup on the plates, it still has to go through the bubble cap, so you're getting extra copper contact. So I think that plays a role. We have other plans to run with plates active, because we're sitting on, like, I think, and Kernean can give the total, but I think it's like probably 1,200 gallons of tails, because we were just saving all of our tails because we have this alcohol product to use, and we thought, well, we could maybe redistill that, do like a queen share, or we could redistill it with plates active and kind of make a more neutral rum for barrel aging and blending, or potentially save that for us to get another purchase still, like a small 50-gallon still, to do botanical rum, because everything grows on the island, and there's a thriving gin, small burgeoning gin scene that's happening here. So there's lots of people to lean on for guidance with, what works, what doesn't work. So there's still a lot of things for us to figure out, but that was, what we were trying to achieve.
Yeah, no, I think that's I wanted to talk about the production process. I think that is a pretty good overview of it. Now that you kind of have the right yeast, did you mention how long the fermentation is?
It's Kernean, it averages about 5 days, correct?
5 days.
And Kernean, if you want to speak to the whole process from start to finish and just give them a snapshot of what a fermentation day is, I think they'd love to hear it, because it's a very long day.
Okay, so we call it juicing day.
Juicing day.
Yeah, we call it juicing day. So this is when we have a day before juicing day where all the trucks dump the cane. So on a normal day, we would have 8 to 9 trucks. We'd have over 25,000 pounds of cane to full a fermentation tank. And our fermentation tank holds 1,400 gallons of juice. So on that day, we have all our workers already in work mode. We would wash our cane, weigh our cane, squeeze our cane. Would have everything pumped to the fermentation tank where we add in the yeast and the nutrients. And basically that's it. Sometimes I kind of like my juicing days because we laugh a lot, we joke around a lot.
It sounds fun, yeah. I kind of want to come to juicing day, yeah. Right?
You would enjoy juicing the days. We catch up on the latest gossip in the country. We would joke around with each other. Sometimes we would just decide, okay, let's come together and cook some food. And sometimes we would what is the name that we call it, bouillon, like a broth. Okay. So if these persons decide they bring in green fig, this person would bring green plantains. Sometimes this person would bring peas. And we would just decide, okay, whatever meat we throw that in the pot and we cook and we eat and we marry.
Oh man.
Juicing day is one of the best days. Trust me,
Oh,
you need to be there for juicing
Juicing
day.
day is the place to be on
Yes.
Dominica.
I'm
It
down
doesn't sound
for
like
it.
It's
a
a
better
place.
place. Yeah.
I want some bouillon.
Huh?
I said I want some bouillon for sure.
You
Absolutely.
you need bouillon in your life. You need it.
Yes. I need some of that in my life.
I feel a distinct lack of it right now. I didn't know it was missing, but now I do. And yeah,
Yeah.
my body's crying out for it.
and then Kernean, after the cane is crushed, how do we deal with the bagasse? Because I know we had sent that to one of the local farmers down the road for him to compost for his property, but we're going to be doing that on site.
We're going to be doing that on site. We would use it as manure and planning to use it as biogas.
Okay,
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the features of the island. I think, Brett, you were talking a little bit about it earlier, Marcella also. There's a lot of lush forest there. It's an amazing... I saw some pictures and I was just like, oh my gosh, it looks incredible. I know there are 9 active volcanoes on Dominica. And I know that because of that activity, a lot of the black sand is there, black sand beaches.
Mm-hmm.
Does that come through, or do you all feel that that is ingrained in the terroir of all of the sugarcane grown on the island to some degree?
I mean, probably. I mean, it's one of the most fertile places to grow. Like you can literally grow anything. I mean, it's amazing. Like and when I was last there in April, at night, you'll smell this amazing, like beautiful floral scent coming down from the mountains, and it's wild ylang ylang, which is like a
Yeah.
very expensive perfume, but it's these flowers that bloom everywhere. And there's vanilla that grows, like cinnamon. There's cinnamon trees, so if they get blown down in the storm, you literally just peel the bark, let it dry in the sun, and now you've got a year's supply of cinnamon. So I
Wow.
would imagine in some way it does, maybe just in the fact that you couldn't ask for better growing conditions. But Marcella could speak much more about that.
I think the black sand does have a lot to do with it. Huh? It's a volcanic island, so the soils are very rich. And depending on, and we have a lot of microclimates, micro,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so you may have plant a particular crop and maybe in half an acre, and maybe the acre next door it would be you'd get a different kind of crop when it grows, so there are differences, and you can taste, like in the Windward Islands they say that we have these sweetest fruits. When people want to buy our fruits, they want to eat what they see and what they get in Dominica, and we export to a lot of the other islands. And there is a difference in the taste. I know there is.
The mangoes are amazing. You want to go, if you, John and Will, if you go during mango season, because you'll just pull over on the side of the road and there's mangoes. Shake the tree,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
just catch your mangoes. They're amazing.
And I
Okay,
know
we're
there's a
gonna
lot of mango types too. Yeah.
we're gonna
Yes.
go
absolutely.
we're gonna
Yes.
go during mango season. We'll pull over, shake out some mangoes from the trees, then we'll come to juicing day,
Right,
and
get
we'll
some
bring
bouillon.
mangoes for
Right.
There we go.
everybody.
Right.
It'll be a great time.
Right. Exactly. And just before we get off the topic, Kernean, also, since you're the cane lady, also, have you noticed some of what Marcella was talking about the differences in different microclimates from different local farms also?
Yes. Yes.
And
There
does it vary greatly, or?
no, I would not say, because everywhere we have fertile soil.
Yeah, it's not a huge island after all, right? I mean, it's got enough, land there, but it's not super huge in terms of land mass size, right? Am I wrong?
300 square.
How long does it take to get from one end of the island to the other?
But no,
That's
no,
a loaded
you-
question, by the way. I know because of the elevation, but yeah.
No, but you notice when Kernean told you how far away the farmers were from the distillery, she gave you time and not miles.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
That's we talk in terms of time,
Yeah.
because some of the roads are very narrow, and
Very
although
curvy.
it's 20 miles across, it'll take you an hour sometimes to
Yeah.
go across because it's a winding road. And a lot, in most countries, when you're going to go to a rainforest, you leave the city and you drive far out and you get to the rainforest.
Right.
In
Right.
Dominica, you leave the airport, you pass through some villages, and you are driving through the rainforest
Wow.
Yeah.
to get to Roseau. So it's, we're different, very different,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And the other thing about us is our water. We have some of the best water, because we have two crater lakes, the Berry
Oh.
Lake and the freshwater lake, and we also have second largest boiling lake in the world. And so it's a lot of it. We have a lot of hot springs, you
Mm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
I have a sister who comes here just to go to she said, to the hot springs, She calls it the spot where she rejuvenates. So we have
Yeah.
a lot of hot springs. So the sulfur, you can smell the sulfur when you go to the springs, and they're all over. And you can go to the hot spring. You just suddenly find a river flowing, and you'll get to a spot in the river, and the water will be hot.
Oh,
And
wow.
then you continue out, and it will get cooler. And even under the sea, what you see above the land, the mountains, that's what you see when you go scuba diving. It's the same
Mm.
kind of terrain
Yeah.
at the bottom of the sea, and we even have champagne, we call it. It's a hot spring under the sea, and it bubbles. Every time I went scuba diving, I used to tell my husband when we're coming back, I said, I felt like a mermaid with all these warm bubbles around. So it's really, really beautiful. It's different,
Yeah, it sounds like
good
no
food. Yes,
no shortage of natural beauty. I want
yes.
to. We've talked a lot about the land. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the conservation efforts. And
Mhm,
we mentioned sea turtles, coral
mhm,
reef, whales. I believe it's sperm whales that I
mhm.
read on the website that come through there
Yes.
often. What you mentioned some of these already, but what kinds of threats do those things face, and what types of efforts will the distillery be able to fund? You mentioned people kind of
Mhm.
patrolling, protecting the beaches for the sea turtles,
That's
but
right.
I'm curious what other efforts might be funded by the distillery.
We have about 25 to 30 patrollers, and we still don't cover the whole island
Oh, wow.
with
Mm.
night patrols because there's so many beaches. We have some bigger beaches, but we have a lot of little inlets, and that is where some people may go to kill the turtles in these little places. So we have to keep trying to raise funds so that we could patrol the entire area because we have mainly leatherbacks coming on
Mm.
the and they nest in the northeast and the southeast, and the hawksbills and the greens nest right away, all the way around the island. In fact, within the last few years, we've noticed that some leatherbacks are coming up on the west coast, and that is very unusual
Oh,
because the
interesting.
leatherbacks like the rough, rugged Atlantic coast where the sea can push their large bodies up onto the beach because
Mm.
they move really slowly when they're on land. But when they're in the sea, these huge, gentle giants, I call them, they could just swim so fast. But on land, they are very, very much slower. And I think that's what makes it easy for people to kill them, because they come up on the beach. They have one thing in their minds that the leatherbacks have come from the North Atlantic, and they've come just to nest in our warm sands so that they're there to reproduce. That's their work. And then they go back up to the North Atlantic. But the hawksbills and the greens live around the island all year round. And even though they are threatened because they are a lot smaller than leatherbacks, and they too are easy to catch as well. The government has done some things in recent years. They have increased the fines for killing sea turtles or having the meat. It used to be just a mere $400, and we spent more than 20 years trying to get them to increase that fine. And in
Wow.
2021, they increased it to $7,500.
Oh, wow. That's a big
Um,
increase.
Yeah.
yes, But some of the things that we have done over the years and we have to continue to do is education work, our outreach in the schools, in the communities, on the media, on the radio, the television, social media. And another thing we have noticed is that some of our turtles may come in hurt, or we may have hatchlings that are not ready to go out. So we are constructing a turtle hospital. So we need to be able to maintain that as well. And in terms of the reefs are in a tragic decline, I think, all over the world.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah.
we have it in the Caribbean here too. And we must save the reefs. You know, in Domsetco, we talk about sea turtle protection. And for us, sea turtle protection means the protection of the sea turtle itself, as well as its habitat and the entire ocean. Because if the ocean is not able to be in a good, healthy condition, then all our food, our fishes, everything will not be healthy for us to eat.
Right.
And the sea turtles need to have a clean environment, especially those that live around our islands all year round, the hawksbills and the greens. Climate change is a big threat for the coral reefs, and the oceans control our weather patterns, and so we find when we have the hotter oceans, we have more dangerous hurricanes. And the oceans also are where we as humans get half of the air that we breathe, more than half of the air that we breathe. So not only is it important to these creatures that we're protected, but it's important to us. And the reefs protect the baby fish so they can eventually grow into bigger fish to give us food. It's a cycle of life. And so we have to protect these things. And with this stony coral tissue loss disease, it's the tissue loss disease, it's terrible. But we've been doing a lot of work, and that's one of our big efforts. We have a restoration center where we are working on growing the reefs again, and we're having some good success. In fact, one of the persons who's doing work on it, we fund them, and they're part of Oceans Forward, because although we are Dominica Sea Turtle Conservation, both Kernean and I are also directors on Oceans Forward Dominica. And so is Simon Walsh, and he has been invited to Florida to talk about what we've been doing, because they're not getting successes everywhere in the region for this disease, and he seems to be doing a good job at it. But
Wow.
we just need to have more money to put into this work. So we are running a center for restoration of the corals, and tourism is important to us. If we have no reefs, where will scuba divers go and see the corals and the
Right.
fish and the turtles? Because we need to have healthy reefs for our turtles to survive there as well. And to a lesser extent, the reefs protect our shorelines. You know, our shorelines are lesser extent, but it's important too, because when the hurricanes are really bad and they come in, they can just wipe out your beaches, your coastlines. I've seen beaches being reduced in size over the years with these bad hurricanes that we are getting now. And one of the signs of all of the things that you can see happening around you that let you know how bad these hurricanes are and why we need to do a lot of work. We have two endemic parrots on Dominica. The Cicero parrot and the Jacko parrot. And some years ago, I remember my husband planting different trees around our farm. And I said, "Why are you planting that?" And he said to me, "One day the hurricanes are going to be so bad that the parrots are going to have to leave the mountains to come down to look for food." And when we came back in 2020, when I came to Dominica, everybody was writing to me and telling me, because I was in St. Vincent with my husband because he wasn't well then, and they would write to me and say, "Marcella, there are parrots on your farm." And I would say, take pictures. When I got back here in 2020, the parrots were coming to eat. And that is a sign to you that their food was destroyed by these hurricanes in the heights. So, everything is interconnected. There are linkages between everything. It's so important for us to think in a holistic way about everything that we have to do for the protection of our sea turtles, of the whales,
Right.
because we have sperm whales that live here all year round, but other whales come when it's warm for them to have young as well. So it's important that we keep our oceans healthy to protect all these creatures and our sea turtles especially.
And I'll just add one thing. If for those of the listeners that have Disney Plus, if you go to the whales documentary and episode 4, the first part of the episode takes place in Dominica, so you'll actually get to see the country, and you'll actually get to see some of the pods and families of whales that they're studying. Pretty unique. They only live in Dominica.
It's called The Whales, you said, documentary?
I can't exactly remember. I have to look it up, but it's like the life of whales or something like that. It's on National Geographic on the Disney Plus. If you just type in whales Nat Geo, it'll pop up.
We'll find the official link and add it to the show notes so people can check it out.
The other thing that we have done work, we have an AIS antenna that we have put up to track where the ship traffic is going, and to see if it interjects with the whales, the movement of the whales, and it does. So we're able to recommend where the ship should pass, rather than passing the same route of where the whales are. And even with the sea turtles, sometimes we get a sea turtle that has drowned and come up onto shore, and you could see where it was probably pulled up on a steel hull, especially if it's a leatherback, and you see the ridges you see the black stuff come off on the back. You know it was pulled up on a steel deck, and they threw the turtle off because they're fishing, the nets. So they just dump the turtle back into the sea, and the turtle washes up on land. In the English-speaking Caribbean, we all use specific nets that have an exclusion zone where the turtles are able to swim through. But there are a lot of different people from different countries that come to fish in our waters, and they don't all do that. So it's a little bit disheartening to think about that we're losing whales that way. Sea turtles that way.
Yeah, I think all of that is really enlightening to hear. And I think any ecosystem, any part of the world, you can see that it's all interconnected. But when I talk to people who live in the Caribbean, in island communities, what I always hear is that you see that interconnectedness so much clearer, because it's sort of a more self-contained area, and you can kind of see how the impact each thing, the kind of domino effect that each thing has on other things, from animals to coral, everything like that. So one of the things that we talk about loving so much about rum on the show is it's such a great way to get to know about different places, different cultures, and things like that. And so many rum enthusiasts who listen to the show that we talk to, that's part of how they fall in love with it. They travel to these places, they see them, they meet the people, and so it's really cool to have a rum now that people can buy, that and your money's going to go directly to having an impact in that region. And we'll put some links up and everything to where people can find Rosalie Bay, because it actually is in the US, which is amazing. I think a lot of times it takes a while before a new distillery in the Caribbean is going to find distribution, but I know kind of through the partnership you have with John and Lori from Raising Glasses, who listeners are familiar with as well, they've been able to bring that in. So that's very cool to see.
Well, I just want to say one thing before I forget. When we were talking about our production process, I forgot to mention how, and it honestly segues back into the whole, circular life cycle that you see when you go to the Caribbean, because you're not just an observer, you're actually part of that when you're there, about how we treat our effluent. That's the one thing I forgot to talk about. So, so distillery, whether spent wash or spent low wine, usually has high levels of biological oxygen, like BOD, biological oxygen demand, and that can cause all sorts of problems in the environment if you just let it like spill into the field. So what we do is a three-stage treatment process. So the first is the mechanical filtration. We filter it down to 5 microns using a drum filter. So for context, the human hair diameter is about 70, so it's really, really small.
Oh, wow.
You
Yeah.
know, and then after that, it goes through a process to another tank where bacteria will consume the ammonia, and it's kind of similar to how an aquarium's biological filter will work. And then after that, it goes to a secondary tank where we are going to buffer it with limestone to bring up the pH, and then transfer to the last one where it goes where there's plants in it, water hyacinth, where they'll take up any traces of heavy metals that might be in the water. So once the water is now clean, in that staging area, you're left with some like organic, like fertilizing agents that you can use for the soil, and you can fill that back in with the cane crops. And then in that clean water tank is where we actually plan to grow fish, and
Wow.
in that. So there's a big process using aquaculture to do that, and it's a pretty novel solution that distilleries could use around the country, particularly if they are near any, like say you're in Atlanta with the Georgia Aquarium or any aquaculture folks.
Yeah.
But there's some pretty novel solutions that are being implemented here that could be used around the world and similar to treat it similarly.
Yeah, I think that's so cool because these are challenges that distilleries, regardless of their size, are all having to tackle. And obviously, the bigger distilleries, have to solve these problems on a much larger scale. But
Yeah.
sometimes the best ideas can come from smaller places too, where you're being resourceful and figuring out how to do this as you go along. And
Yeah.
this,
Proof of concept.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But this is also just why I think we try to emphasize on the show how much work goes into doing a distillery like this. It's not just figuring out how to make good rum, right? I mean, obviously that's part of it, but especially when you're working with fresh cane juice, you're figuring out a system for working with 80 different farmers and transporting all that and trying to do it in a way that protects the environment, protects the land, and then in this case also gives money back to it. It's really, I would say, like, encouraging to hear about something like this happening on this scale. It's very cool to see this kind of rum playing a part in solving some of these problems or contributing to easing the burden. But we've talked about the rum production. You mentioned a couple times designing rum that would be good for aging. So I know currently there's the unaged rum on the market, but what does the future look like over the next few years? What should people keep an eye out from Rosalie Bay?
So one of the things that makes us kind of unique among many things is we're a kosher distillery, and we decided to go that route because there's not a lot of kosher rums in the market, and we wanted to make it as approachable as possible to many different people.
Yeah.
And we just recently were connected with a kosher Calvados distillery, and so we're really interested in getting those barrels and starting to fill them. We have some kosher bourbon barrels that we have been filling, and we're looking to diversify that. So the issue is for example, it takes us a long time to make our rum because during harvest season all we're doing is crushing, fermenting, and doing stripping runs. You'll clean the still at certain times during that time, but once that whole harvest is done, then we do a spirit run. So we've got all these tanks filled with low wines that we have to process, and we end up using the four shots and heads for distillery cleaning because they're really good at keeping things nice and shiny, and then we have all those tails left over. So the hearts that don't get allocated for unaged, for the unaged rum, we will be building those up over time to be building out our barrel program. And I think one of the next things that we're looking to do is explore how Calvados pairs with our profile, and I think it would pair very well, particularly because a lot of those French oak casks are they're toasted. You're going to get nice vanilla notes, and depending on the age of the Calvados, 4 years, 6 years, something like that, you're going to get a lot of those notes in the barrels. And for us, we're not really doing, say, a finishing thing at this time because we don't obviously just have a stock of age. And
Right.
we just got an adjacent building built that will be the primary aging location. So it'll be our barrel warehouse where it's not temperature controlled. And because of that, you have to rethink how you fill the cask. because in the Caribbean, unlike in a lot of places, every year you're losing alcohol because of the humidity. So you've got to go in at a much higher proof. And then over time, that's going to drop. So we're going to have to do some experiments to kind of figure where that'll be and over time. So there's a lot of kind of things to learn as we go. But yeah, I think Calvados cask is going to be in the future. And then, other, potentially interesting, pairing, things that I think would work with the profile. So it's going to be a lot of just sipping on our rum, smelling and tasting a lot of different things and kind of figuring out what works. I could see, some other, maybe dessert, dessert wine kind of things would be fun to play with. So right now, I think that's it. But the big challenge for us is to find kosher producers where, and again, just having, and because we have to understand all the different life cycle parts of this whole operation, we also have to understand what they did. So that way we can make sure, that they are actually what they say they are when they say they're kosher, because we take that very seriously.
Right.
And, what also really kind of helps with that is we have a very extensive database, which allows us to have full traceability from the farm all the way to the final product. And that we've spent months building out that database, and Kernean can talk a lot more about that because she has to use it on the daily basis. But it literally starts at the farmer's field. And so with every bottle, you'll know exactly what part of the island it came from.
Oh, wow.
And the blends of the different, that came into it. And maybe in the future, and one thing we could do, and we'd have to probably get a smaller still for this, but it was something to explore, would be doing single cane expressions, because I would love to know how Black Sam differs from, say, Sayaya or Malavois or Con Bamboo or these other types of things. So there's definitely a lot of that in the future. And then, like I said earlier, I could see us potentially either redistilling the tails, doing a queen share, or redistilling it with place active to make it a little more neutral. So it'll absolutely take whatever the cask, offers. Then you could use that as a blending agent, or even allocating some of that. Because every time we do a run, we get 50 gallons of tails, running that through a column, a small little 50-gallon column still, and exploring some different botanical expressions, just utilizing what grows in the island. Because if you go to any market in Rousseau, you can literally get anything. Like you can get literally nutmeg with mace on it. You can get all the cloves. You can get plenty of sorrel. It's a distiller's paradise, truly, because you can literally get any spice you want, fresh.
Kernean, I was going to ask you, now that you've learned the art of distilling and everything, do you see adding blending to your list of job duties as well once the barrels start getting in there? Do you see that being something that you'll run point on?
Well, actually, I can do a little something. I used to be a waitress, so I can do a little something. Getting
Oh.
lady to bartending to
All right.
mixing.
You better be careful. They're going to start calling you Barrel Lady, too.
You know what is really nice about this is that we are progressing, and as we go along, there are different things that are coming out, and we're trying to deal with them. And I keep thinking that we have a good team, and everybody's pushing forward to make something good of it.
Yeah.
But I'm very, very pleased that Brett was able to come and share his knowledge and transfer technology to us. And I'm even more pleased that the person he transferred that technology to was a woman.
Absolutely.
There we go.
So although we have a good team, and I don't want anybody to feel I'm leaving them out, but I'm really, really grateful for the good work that they're doing. Because I think without them giving us that rum that is good, we would not be able to save our turtles, because we have to be able to sell it.
Yeah.
So I am very, very pleased with them. Yes.
And
excellent.
I will just say that it's been a privilege and an honor to play a small part in helping Dominicans once again make cane juice rum and share their culture and rum with the world. And I'm really excited for Kernean, because now the world knows who you are. And I hope others from the surrounding island, like Martinique, Guadeloupe, Marie-Galante, others, reach out to you, because you're incredible, and I would love to see you have more connections within the region to help you grow even further.
Much more than just
You're amazing.
much more than just the cane lady.
It's true.
I actually like that name though.
The title stays, but there's more than just the cane
That's
beyond
right.
that.
That's true.
And you have more strides and more places to go. Don't worry. It's very good.
All right. Well, we've been all over the place so far learning about Rosalie Bay and everything there. We only have one thing left to do on the show, and that's going to take us to even crazier places, perhaps, John. So our tradition on the show is that John has what he calls the rapid fire segment, where he asks in quick succession a bunch of questions that have, kind of short answers. He'll explain the finer points. But John, usually this is kind of a one-on-one thing. We've done these with groups a few times before. What do you think is the best way to tackle this with our three guests?
So I was going to say, I think this might be the first time we've tried this with three guests, and this is going to be interesting, let's say. But the idea, so I don't know. The answer to your question, Will, is I don't know. I think this is just going to be chaos, and we're going to embrace it. But what we do is very short answer, quick questions, and rapid fire answers. There is no right, no wrong, and it is all silly. So I actually feel a little embarrassment already because this has been such a serious and important conversation we've had so far. To bring this now at the end of it is going to be a little awkward and weird. But hey, that's what we do. It's tradition, right? We'll get through it together. So with that, I think there will be some questions I'll try to target for one of you. But if not, I think somebody jump in and say what you think, and then we'll go from there.
That sounds like a plan. Yeah.
Do we have? Let's make sure. Is everybody invested in this? Are we good to go? All three thumbs up. All right.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Will, you got to put the time on the clock.
Yeah, I'm gonna put 60 seconds on the clock. We'll give you some extra time because it's three people. The logistics are a little challenging. So I've got it on the clock. When you're ready, John. Go.
All right, Kernean, to start with, neat or on the rocks as a new rum drinker?
Neat.
Okay, all right. Brett, let's do column, pot, or blend.
I'd probably go with pot.
Brett looked off screen just so those of you couldn't see it. He was so upset by having to answer that question. I saw it in his eyes.
It's an impossible question to answer, but my first answer was pot distilled preferentially. But I like it all.
Gotcha. Marcella, as an experienced rum drinker, aged or unaged, what do you prefer?
Aged.
All right, aged.
Rosalie Bay's getting there.
It's
getting there.
Exactly. Yeah. And then for let's go with Kernean again. I think this is an easy one. Molasses or cane juice?
Cane juice.
All right.
Cane lady has to say
right.
cane juice.
Right.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to throw out molasses and just have a fight about it now, we can do that. But if not, I'm going to move on. For Brett, how often have you had to correct people who think Rosalie Bay rum is made in the Dominican Republic and not Dominica? And on a scale of 1 to 100, how frustrating is that?
Nearly every time.
Yeah.
Every time I say, I tell them about Dominica, and like, I love Punta Cana. Wrong island. Yeah. So, at this point, I'm used to it. I wish I could have a map and kind of show, but given the size difference of, of Dominican Republic to Dominica on a map of scale, it'd be hard to point to it.
Yeah.
But, you just get used to it. It's funny. You have less of that issue when you're at Miami Airport, but when you're on most other places, they have no idea.
That's right, because we're cultured here in Miami. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate that. Marcella, your favorite rum distillery not located within 100 miles of Dominica. So no Martinique, no Guadeloupe here. This should be an easy answer, I'm going to guess.
Well, Mount Gay is good, but I like
okay. I thought you might have gone back to Trinidad, but let's do
yes,
all right. Mount Gay is good.
Sure too, but you see, Mount Gay is the oldest rum in the world.
Yep, and that's
so
good.
there's
Makes good
something
rum.
about it. Yes,
that's
and
right.
I'm a Caribbean woman. Okay.
That's true.
That's great. All right, Kernean, Dominica is home to a huge number of animal species for its size. We know we already talked about a few of them, and one animal that caught my attention is the giant ditch frog, otherwise known as the mountain chicken. apparently this is because it's due to its size, and I guess, well, it tastes like chicken. How pervasive are these there, Kernean? Do you run into these like all the time, or is this like a weekly occurrence, or what?
I haven't run into one in a while.
Okay. So you're not like scared. I would be scared for my life if I saw a frog the size of a chicken.
I am only scared of them when my mother skin it and she's ready to cook it. Because they look like a man.
Oh, wow.
We don't eat it anymore, huh? We don't eat it anymore.
I heard because they're protected now, right?
Yes.
Or you
Yeah,
want to
It's
protect them.
extinct.
And
Yeah.
we
When I
don't
was
have a lot of
younger,
them.
That's fascinating.
When I was younger and we go out to hunt them, and my mother would skin it and throw that in the pot, that looks like a man with muscles.
Oh my goodness. Another reason it should be protected and not to eat it. Sounds good.
Right.
All right. Let's see. Brett, your favorite rum cocktail made using Rosalie Bay?
I really like it with like a spice, like when you go to you see it at a cart when you're in Roseau or if you're down in other places, but they make a spice sorrel drink. It's really nice just to add that to it.
Ah,
Really
nice.
nice. You'll get notes of cinnamon and clove, and it plays really well with the floral notes. And then you
Oh,
have
that
a
sounds
little
awesome.
gentle herbaceousness. It's really
Yeah.
nice. You put that on the rocks, maybe a little bit of soda water. Fantastic.
Outside of South Florida here in the States, we may need to hip some people to sorrel. Will, I don't think you even know what
Oh,
sorrel is.
no,
huh?
because I know the liqueur made the sorrel
good.
liqueur.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of
Yeah.
it. It's escaping me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know it through that.
All right, we're gonna end, I think, on one that's gonna be a little interesting here. I'm gonna need all of your help for this one. It's a little out there. So I wanted to mention, since some of the film series Pirates of the Caribbean, including The Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, were filmed in Dominica, I feel like we could all get together. We could get Johnny Depp, Orlando Bloom, and Keira Knightley back for another sequel, with 100% of the proceeds going to conservation efforts.
All right.
But I need some help with the title. So, all right, let's start with Kernean, Pirates of the Caribbean, A Whale of a Tale. What do you think? Marcella likes that one. Kernean's like, nah.
It's no good.
All right, Marcella, Pirates of the Caribbean, Revenge of Rosalie Bay.
Yes, not bad.
Not bad. All right.
Likes a little
all right.
revenge.
Brett,
if you see the dynamic beach that the turtles have to come in when they nest, that title makes total sense.
excellent. All right.
Somebody would have shipwrecked on it.
I knew these were good when I was making them. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Ecosystem Strikes Back.
Yes.
Yes? All right. And the last one, Pirates of the Caribbean, Corsairs for Conservation.
Yes.
Oh, I hit on all these, Will. This is
All right.
4 for 4. We need to say that.
Well, that's time. I will say, Marcella and Kernean, you don't have to be nice, okay? So you don't. If you're pretending at all or anything, it's gonna go straight to John's head. You know, he's already bragging about going for 4 for 4. But
I think he and Brett needs to link up and write something because Brett has an imaginary mind.
Yes.
We have a Gooties on Compound, and Brett wrote a full movie on these Agoutis.
Yeah.
Wow.
The joke was because they all have different personalities, and I've only seen them when I'm driving, but we can have a whole romantic little sitcom of all these little animals. Kernean can fill in the details, but John, I think let's drink some rum and write some things. I think we'd have some good copy.
I'm free on Thursday nights, Brett. Let's do it.
Do it.
all right, well, amazing. I think
Actually, Pirates of the Caribbean will be, if you use that start it off and say Pirates of the Caribbean and protecting the last of the what you call them? The leatherbacks, not leatherbacks, the sea turtles are the last of the dinosaurs.
Oh.
And, you know, so it's a strange thing with Pirates of the Caribbean, because that's an old time thing too.
There's
but
a
it's
connection
the
there,
dinosaurs
yeah.
even before that.
Reclaiming the past.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Love it.
All right,
You've got the words, man. I need you to give me the words. You've got them.
Every episode now is going to end with John pitching movie ideas to our guests. Well, if any Hollywood people are out there, you know, you just got the $1 billion idea free on the podcast. All we ask is that you push the proceeds towards conservation efforts.
That's right. And maybe a bit part for me. No.
A cameo. Maybe pay for the Rumcast to take a trip down to Dominica for juicing day.
There you go. I like that. Juicing day.
Marcella, Kernean, Brett, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. This was it was really fun to learn more about what you're doing, and I'm excited for the rest of the rum world to learn more about this. I know people are kind of just starting to see some of the bottles out there, but I don't think a lot of people know kind of the full story behind what you're doing. As we mentioned earlier, we will put in the show notes links to where you can order Rosalie Bay rum through our friends at Raising Glasses. And anything either of you want to add before we wrap up? Anything we missed? Anything we didn't cover?
I will also say that the one thing we didn't talk about, but is very important and very cool, is Dominica is the only place where the native population never left. So you can still come here and experience, go to the Colonado territory and experience that whole culture. It's amazing. It's vibrant. It's beautiful. It's a must-do if you come. And then the only other thing is I'll send you a link to it, but there's a documentary called The Last Turtle. It talks about the Dominica sea turtle.
Yes.
It's really great for context.
Yeah. No, definitely send us that. We'll add it in the show notes for anyone who wants to check it out. But again, it was great getting to know you all. And hopefully John and I will make our way to Dominica for a juicing day sometime soon.
You can get direct flights from Miami.
There you go.
On American.
Yeah.
John, I'll meet you there. We'll head down together.
Sounds good.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Will and John.
Thank you very much for having us.
It's good.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure. Thank you all so much for joining. All right, everyone, thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Rumcast. As we mentioned throughout the show, we're going to put up a bunch of links in the show notes to various things we discussed throughout the episode. We'll put up a link to how you can get yourself a bottle of Rosalie Bay rum if you would like to do that, some links to some of the conservation content that was discussed throughout the episode, and I would say check out the Rosalie Bay website as well. There's a lot of great information there, photos and all that good stuff. And as always, we would love to hear from you. If you have reactions, comments, questions, ideas for other episodes, send us an email, host@rumcast.com. That's HOST@rumcast.com, or you can find us on social media. John, where can they find us?
At the Rumcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Instagram? Is that a new one?
Instagram.
Instagram also. I just
It is
started
not.
a new social media right now. Instagram, at the Rumcast on any of those channels. And also Threads. Threads is, I'm seeing some growth on there too. And a lot of people now, Will, are talking about this.
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
Blue
So,
Sky. Are we on Blue Sky yet, John?
We're not on Blue Sky, but maybe we should be.
Got to get on that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're trying to be everywhere. We want to be
Everywhere all the
places, exactly, all at once.
Rumcast Super Bowl ad this year coming soon.
We need a catchy jingle like Temu. Ooh, 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 Rumcast.
I'm so sick of seeing Temu ads everywhere. They follow me everywhere on the internet, John. I'm not buying your stuff, Temu. Leave me alone.
Anyways, you can get to us on those social media and leave a comment, do all the likey, subscribey stuff, but more so because
Subscribe.
because we want the interaction from the community. One of the reasons we do this is just because we want other rum lovers like us, and we know you're out there, to talk amongst yourselves. So this is a platform to do that. Not only that, but also our Patreon. You can join the Patreon, other rum lovers like you that are on there with the Discord, talk in Discord, and really just have a jolly time.
A jolly time, a merry good time here
merry good
as
time.
we enter the bitter cold of December throughout a big portion of the United States right now.
Yeah.
John, we've got a lot coming up. We hinted earlier, we've got our year in review episode coming up. We're also going to give another update on our Rumcast cask project, which we detailed a few episodes back. There's, wheels are in motion there. We're
super excited.
Coming up with ideas, looking into bottle options. We're going to make a decision on the name soon. And it's, we're only, 7 weeks away or so from making our way across the pond, John?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because you always have that like end of year time that is in between now and then. That kind of time doesn't quite follow the same rules as the rest of the year.
Right.
I don't know if it's like that for you.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not long, and we're going to be over there before you know it. And we have a lot of decisions to make, Will, to get to
We
before
do.
that. And so, yeah, I mean, we got to get snapping here.
We got so many great name suggestions, by the way. The only reason we
yeah.
haven't shared them yet is just because we're waiting for our next episode. So we'll definitely share a lot of the submissions that came in, and yeah, make a decision of our own, which we're getting close to, I think. But yeah, so much exciting stuff to come, more exciting interviews being scheduled as we speak, and so there's a lot to look forward to, and I can't wait to do it all soon. So John, until next time, cheers.
Cheers.